Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going to do something pretty incredible. We're uncovering the exact psychology that separates the incredibly wealthy from, well, those who are constantly struggling to make ends meet. Based on the deep research of wealth coach and author T. Harv Eker, we're going to break down what actually creates financial success. And look, we aren't just giving you basic budgeting tips today, no way. We are diving deep into the subconscious programming, your specific mindset that literally dictates whether you'll achieve financial freedom or just keep hitting that invisible glass ceiling. So get ready, because the way you view money, it's about to fundamentally change.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever heard T. Harv Eker's absolutely bold claim? He basically says that if you give him just 5 minutes with someone, he can predict their entire financial future. Just 5 minutes. I mean, he doesn't even need to peek at your bank statements or scrutinize your investment portfolio. By simply observing your mindset, how you speak about money, and your underlying psychology, he can accurately forecast whether you're going to become wealthy, stay middle class, or struggle your whole life. And he can make this claim so confidently because he spent years, literally years, studying the habits and psychology of highly successful millionaires. To really understand this, Eker uses a brilliant metaphor. Think of your financial life as a tree. The visible part of the tree, the fruits, well, those represent your external financial results. But if you don't like the fruits, maybe they're too small, there aren't enough of them, or they just don't taste right, what do? You can't just tape better fruit onto the branches, right? That doesn't work. You have to go underground. You have to nurture the roots. So, your invisible internal mindset represents those roots. And those roots are what ultimately create your external financial fruits. Basically, you just can't change the fruits without first changing the roots.
So how exactly do those roots grow the fruits? Well, it all comes down to what's called the TFR formula. That's your thoughts leading to your feelings leading to your actions, and your actions determining your results. Let's look at an example straight from the source material. If your primary thought when saving money is purely fear-based, like saying, oh man, I really need to save this money for a bad time, that thought generates a feeling of anxiety. That anxious feeling drives your actions, and ironically, the result you end up manifesting is exactly that, a bad time. But if you flip it, if you change that initial thought to, I'm saving to create wealth and financial freedom, your actions expand, you think bigger, and the ultimate result, wealth and success. It's like a total paradigm shift.
But that brings up a pretty crucial question, right? Where do these initial thoughts even come from? I mean, they don't just appear out of thin air. They are deeply programmed into what Eker calls your money blueprint. You can think of this as the master architectural plan for your financial life. Since you were a kid, your mind has been conditioned, essentially acting like the soil your financial tree is planted in. Our source material points out that there are 3 distinct areas of unconscious conditioning from our past that completely dictate this blueprint.
So what actually shapes this blueprint? Let's break it down into those 3 specific areas. First up is verbal programming. Basically, what did you hear growing up? Did you hear phrases like, money is the root of all evil? Or rich people are greedy? That kind of stuff gets lodged right in your subconscious. Second is modeling, which is what you saw. You likely unconsciously adopted your parents' spending habits and financial fears. Or, maybe you rebelled completely against them. And third is specific incidents. What emotional experiences did you actually have around money? Going through extreme poverty or a traumatic financial loss in your family deeply wires how you handle money today.
The absolute crucial takeaway here is this. Your outer world is simply a reflection of your inner world. All of that past conditioning, the words, the models, the emotional incidents, that all creates your inner world. But here's the really empowering part. If you are aware of this conditioning, you can totally reprogram it. You do not have to be a victim of your past blueprint. By actively changing your inner mindset, your outer financial reality literally has no choice but to shift and reflect that new wealth-oriented thinking.
Okay, so now that we know how our financial roots are formed, how do we actively change them? Well, Eker outlines what he calls the 17 wealth files. You can kind of think of these as software updates for your brain. These files represent the practical, real-world manifestations of a healthy, wealthy money blueprint. They highlight the exact psychological differences in how rich people and poor people operate on a daily basis. So for the rest of this explainer, we're going to contrast these mindsets so you can identify exactly which mental files you need to update. Let's get into it.
When it comes to control and commitment, just notice the stark contrast here. A rich mindset firmly believes, I create my life. They take absolute control. Whereas the poor mindset tends to play the victim, believing life simply happens to them. Also, rich people play the money game to win. They are constantly on offense. Poor mindsets, they play simply not to lose, totally driven by fear. And honestly, this next part is huge. Rich people are fully committed to being wealthy. They'll work day and night, sacrificing comfort to build their business. Poor mindsets merely want to be rich, but they just aren't willing to put in the immense action required to actually get there.
Now think about vision and focus. A rich mindset thinks big. They actively step out of their comfort zone because they know that if you only do what's easy, life's going to be hard. When faced with a situation, they zero in on the opportunities. A poor mindset looks at the exact same situation and only sees the obstacles and the risks. Oh, and this is absolutely vital. Wealthy people admire other successful people. Poor mindsets often harbor resentment and negativity toward the wealthy, secretly believing that money changes people for the worse. And you know the old saying, you can't become what you resent.
Let's move on to environment and self-worth. It's actually kind of funny how a poor mindset shrinks away from self-promotion like it's some sort of contagious disease. But wealthy people? They are supremely confident in promoting their value. They aren't afraid of sales or marketing at all. They purposefully surround themselves with ambitious, positive winners to learn and grow, while poor mindsets often just wallow in negative associations. Plus, people with a poor mindset often feel smaller than their problems and suffer from low self-esteem. And that low self-esteem, it makes them terrible receivers. When an opportunity or even just a compliment comes their way, they subconsciously reject it because they just don't feel they deserve it. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how earning and measurement break down. Take a look at the measurement rows specifically. The middle class and poor measure their financial success purely by their monthly working income or their salary. But the wealthy, they measure their success by their total net worth. That includes savings, investments, and assets, not just their paycheck. Also, the rich actually choose to get paid based on their results, while the poor choose to get paid based on their time, which is obviously inherently limited. And when faced with two good options, the poor think either or, but the rich ask themselves, how can I have both? Finally, the whole thing comes down to management and action. Look, there's this massive misconception out there that the rich just don't feel fear. They absolutely do. But the rich mindset acts in spite of fear, while the poor mindset gets entirely paralyzed by it. It's wild how paralyzing fear can be until you realize literally everyone feels it. The wealthy just refuse to let it stop them. The wealthy also set up systems so that their money works incredibly hard for them. On the flip side, poor mindsets spend their entire lives working hard just for money, often mismanaging it on frivolous things just to look rich. Lastly, a millionaire mind is a constant learner. A poor mindset suffers from this know-it-all attitude, believing they already have nothing left to learn, which completely stunts their growth.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, moving from the invisible roots of our financial conditioning all the way to the very visible fruits of our actions. We've seen exactly how verbal programming and past modeling shape our reality, and we just walked through the 17 distinct ways the wealthy choose to view the world differently. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a critical question to ask yourself. Which of those 17 wealth files do you recognize as a weakness in your own life?